Imagine waking up one morning to discover the air outside feels heavier, hotter, and strangely silent, as if the planet itself is whispering warnings humanity has ignored for decades. Rising temperatures are no longer distant scientific predictions or dramatic headlines meant to scare viewers. They are becoming a daily reality, quietly reshaping how people live, travel, work, and even breathe. From melting ice caps to unexpected heat waves, the signs are everywhere. Yet many still underestimate the true danger hidden behind a simple increase of just a few degrees. What seems like a minor shift in weather patterns is actually triggering powerful chain reactions across ecosystems, economies, and societies, creating consequences far more complex than anyone imagined. Scientists warn that temperature rise does not happen evenly, meaning some regions experience unbearable extremes, while others face unpredictable storms, droughts, and floods that disrupt millions of lives overnight. Cities built for moderate climates now struggle with scorching streets, failing infrastructure, and rising health emergencies, forcing governments and communities to rethink how urban environments must adapt quickly. Meanwhile, rural populations dependent on agriculture face devastating crop failures, as traditional growing seasons shift unpredictably, leaving farmers uncertain about planting times, harvest expectations, and financial survival. Water sources that once seemed endless are beginning to shrink, causing tension between communities, industries, and nations competing for access to one of the planet's most essential resources. Rising temperatures also accelerate glacier melt, threatening freshwater supplies for billions who rely on seasonal ice flows that have quietly sustained civilizations for centuries without widespread recognition. Beyond environmental concerns, extreme heat directly impacts human productivity, reducing physical performance, increasing fatigue, and creating workplace challenges that could reshape global economic output in the coming decades. Even nighttime temperatures are climbing steadily, preventing the natural cooling cycles that help human bodies recover, leading to sleep disturbances, increased stress levels, and long-term health complications. Wildlife species struggle to migrate or adapt quickly enough, causing biodiversity loss that disrupts delicate ecological balances and weakens nature's ability to regulate climate through forests, oceans, and soil systems. Coastal communities are witnessing rising sea levels combined with intensified storms, turning once safe shorelines into danger zones where homes, businesses, and cultural heritage face gradual disappearance. Heat waves now last longer and strike with greater intensity, overwhelming healthcare systems unprepared for sudden surges in heat stroke, dehydration cases, and chronic illness complications among vulnerable populations. Infrastructure such as roads, railways, and power grids begins to fail under sustained high temperatures, creating transportation disruptions and energy shortages that ripple through supply chains worldwide. Energy demand spikes dramatically as people rely on cooling systems, placing pressure on electricity networks, and increasing greenhouse emissions when fossil fuels remain dominant sources of power generation. Rising temperatures can even influence global conflict risks, as resource scarcity, migration pressures, and economic instability create fertile ground for political tensions and humanitarian crises. Insurance industries are quietly adjusting policies and premiums, reflecting growing recognition that climate-related disasters are no longer rare events but recurring financial threats affecting individuals and corporations alike. Education systems must adapt too, as extreme heat forces school closures, disrupts learning schedules, and highlights inequalities between regions capable of climate-proofing facilities and those struggling with basic infrastructure. The psychological impact of living under constant environmental uncertainty cannot be ignored, with climate anxiety becoming a real phenomenon influencing mental health, life choices, and societal optimism about the future. Forests that once acted as natural carbon absorbers are increasingly threatened by wildfires fueled by prolonged heat and dryness, releasing stored emissions back into the atmosphere in devastating feedback loops. Ocean temperatures are rising as well, leading to coral bleaching events that destroy vibrant underwater ecosystems, supporting fisheries, tourism economies, and coastal protection against powerful waves. Changes in temperature patterns influence disease spread, enabling mosquitoes and other vectors to expand into new territories, increasing risks of infections previously uncommon in certain climates. Food supply chains become vulnerable as extreme weather disrupts production, transportation, and storage systems worldwide. As temperatures continue climbing across continents, communities are beginning to notice subtle yet alarming transformations in daily routines, from altered work hours to shifting social behaviors shaped by persistent environmental discomfort. In many regions, mornings start earlier than ever before, not from discipline or productivity goals, but from necessity, as people try to complete essential tasks before the relentless midday heat dominates. Construction workers, street vendors, delivery drivers, and countless outdoor laborers now operate on fragile schedules, balancing economic survival against the growing physical risks associated with prolonged exposure to extreme temperatures. Heat does not simply exhaust the body. It quietly affects concentration, decision-making, and reaction times, increasing the likelihood of accidents that ripple across workplaces, transportation systems, and public safety networks. Hospitals report unusual seasonal patterns, with emergency rooms experiencing unexpected surges in heat-related complications during periods that historically remained mild, forcing medical professionals to adapt treatment protocols rapidly. Children and elderly individuals remain particularly vulnerable as their bodies regulate temperature less efficiently, turning what seems like ordinary hot weather into a potentially life-threatening challenge requiring constant vigilance. In schools lacking proper cooling systems, learning environments become stressful and uncomfortable, reducing academic performance and widening educational gaps between regions that can afford climate-resilient infrastructure and those struggling financially. Meanwhile, households face rising electricity bills as cooling devices run continuously, pushing lower-income families into difficult choices between comfort, health protection, and other essential expenses. Power outages during heat waves create cascading crises, trapping people in overheated homes, disrupting communication networks, and exposing the fragile balance between technological dependence and environmental unpredictability. Food spoilage increases when refrigeration systems fail under pressure, leading to waste, financial losses, and additional strain on supply chains already stressed by changing agricultural conditions. Supermarkets and local markets must rethink storage strategies, transportation timing, and sourcing locations to maintain consistent product availability in climates growing less predictable each passing year. Farmers observe that rising nighttime temperatures can be even more damaging than daytime heat, as crops lose the chance to recover, leading to reduced yields and compromised nutritional quality. Livestock also suffer silently, with heat stress decreasing fertility rates, milk production, and overall animal welfare, ultimately influencing food prices and rural economic stability worldwide. Fisheries face parallel challenges as warmer waters alter migration routes and breeding cycles, forcing fishing communities to travel farther while confronting uncertain catches and higher operational costs. Tourism operators notice shifting peak seasons, with travelers avoiding traditionally popular destinations during scorching months, creating unpredictable revenue patterns and forcing strategic business adaptations. Cultural landmarks exposed to extreme temperature fluctuations begin deteriorating faster, threatening irreplaceable historical heritage that connects present generations to their shared past. Insurance claims linked to heat-induced damage are increasing steadily, prompting companies to reevaluate risk models and raising concerns about affordability of coverage in high-risk regions. Urban planners recognize the urgency of redesigning cities with shaded walkways, water features, and expanded green spaces capable of reducing heat island effects and improving overall livability. However, implementing large-scale urban transformation requires long-term investment, political consensus, and public patience, elements that often clash with short election cycles and competing national priorities. Social inequality becomes more visible during extreme heat events, as wealthier neighborhoods benefit from better infrastructure, private transportation, and access to cooling technologies unavailable to marginalized communities. Public transportation systems face operational disruptions when overheated tracks warp or vehicles malfunction, complicating commuting routines and reducing economic productivity across metropolitan regions. Athletes and sports organizations are already modifying training schedules and competition timings, recognizing that performance and safety must take precedence over traditional seasonal calendars. Outdoor cultural events and festivals experience declining attendance or sudden cancellations, reshaping entertainment. Imagine walking through a city where the sun feels unusually intense, shadows offer little relief, and people move carefully, aware that environmental conditions are gradually becoming more challenging each passing year. Rising temperatures are influencing daily experiences in subtle yet meaningful ways, encouraging communities to rethink routines, prioritize safety, and explore smarter methods for staying comfortable during extended periods of heat. Emergency planners now include heat preparedness and training programs, focusing on coordination, communication, and community awareness, rather than fear-based reactions or dramatic assumptions about environmental change. Wildfire management strategies continue improving as experts develop better monitoring systems, safer evacuation procedures, and responsible land practices designed to minimize risks during hot and dry seasons. Public awareness campaigns highlight the importance of clean air practices, encouraging citizens to follow guidance that protects respiratory health and promotes sustainable behaviors beneficial for both individuals and ecosystems. Organized evacuation planning emphasizes calm responses, clear instructions, and supportive networks, ensuring that vulnerable groups receive timely assistance without panic or misinformation spreading through communities. Urban designers focus on reducing heat accumulation by introducing green spaces, shaded walkways, and reflective materials that help cities remain livable and welcoming even during warmer weather conditions. Social harmony becomes increasingly important during climate challenges, as cooperation, patience, and empathy enable communities to handle shared difficulties constructively rather than allowing stress to create division. Researchers study how environmental comfort affects decision-making, helping organizations design workplaces and public environments that support productivity, safety, and overall well-being during temperature fluctuations. Businesses adopt flexible schedules and safety guidelines, demonstrating that proactive planning can maintain economic stability while protecting employees from unnecessary exposure to uncomfortable environmental conditions. Aviation professionals carefully monitor weather and temperature data to ensure safe operations, adjusting procedures responsibly to maintain reliability and passenger confidence across global travel networks. Railway engineers implement preventive maintenance strategies that account for seasonal expansion of materials, ensuring transportation systems continue functioning efficiently even during extended warm periods. Shipping industries adapt navigation planning using advanced forecasting tools that help maintain secure maritime routes while respecting environmental conservation and operational efficiency goals. Insurance experts emphasize preparedness and resilience education, guiding individuals and organizations toward practical risk management approaches rather than alarmist predictions about future uncertainties. Farmers benefit from improved forecasting technologies that support informed planting and harvesting decisions, helping stabilize food production despite evolving temperature patterns and seasonal variability. Traditional ecological knowledge remains valuable, offering sustainable land practices that complement scientific innovations and encourage balanced relationships between communities and natural environments. Pollinator protection initiatives grow in importance, highlighting how biodiversity conservation contributes to stable agricultural systems and healthy ecosystems capable of adapting gradually to climate changes. Urban wildlife adaptation research provides insights into coexistence strategies that promote humane solutions and ecological awareness without sensationalizing environmental challenges. Conservation programs focus on habitat restoration and connectivity, enabling species to adjust migration routes naturally while maintaining ecosystem balance essential for long-term environmental stability. Regional cooperation regarding shared water resources emphasizes diplomacy, fairness, and sustainable management practices designed to prevent conflict and encourage mutual benefits among neighboring communities. Innovations in water purification and efficiency support resilience planning, demonstrating how technological progress can address resource concerns responsibly without creating additional ecological pressure. Mountain region monitoring systems help predict potential environmental risks, allowing authorities to implement protective measures that safeguard populations and infrastructure effectively. Climate responsive architecture continues evolving, integrating ventilation design, natural lighting, and material efficiency to enhance comfort while reducing energy consumption. As the planet grows warmer, scientists warn humanity is approaching critical thresholds where environmental changes accelerate beyond prediction, creating scenarios that once belonged only to speculative fiction and dystopian imagination. Entire regions could face prolonged periods where outdoor survival becomes difficult without advanced cooling technologies, fundamentally reshaping settlement patterns and redefining what it means to inhabit certain parts of Earth. Economic centers built near coastlines must confront the dual challenge of rising seas and extreme heat, forcing difficult decisions about relocation, redesign, or massive protective infrastructure investments. Financial markets react sharply to climate uncertainties as investors reassess long-term viability of industries vulnerable to temperature-driven disruptions, shifting capital towards sustainability-focused innovations and adaptive technologies. Global supply chains reveal hidden fragilities when heat waves simultaneously affect multiple production hubs, causing cascading shortages that remind societies how deeply interconnected modern economies have become. Strategic food reserves gain renewed importance as governments prepare for unpredictable harvest outcomes, highlighting the necessity of balancing immediate consumption demands with future security planning. Meanwhile, freshwater scarcity intensifies diplomatic negotiations between neighboring nations sharing rivers and reservoirs, emphasizing that environmental challenges increasingly influence geopolitical relationships and international stability. Urban heat islands continue expanding, trapping warmth within dense city structures and disproportionately impacting vulnerable populations who lack access to cooling spaces or climate-resilient housing. Public health experts anticipate rising temperatures may reshape disease patterns significantly, requiring new vaccination strategies, surveillance systems, and healthcare workforce training adapted to emerging environmental realities. Psychological stress linked to climate uncertainty manifests through eco-anxiety, influencing life decisions such as career choices, family planning, and migration preferences among younger generations. Education systems worldwide incorporate climate adaptation studies into curricula, preparing students not only with theoretical knowledge, but practical skills needed to navigate and mitigate environmental challenges. Technological pioneers develop smart infrastructure capable of monitoring temperature fluctuations in real time, enabling dynamic responses that optimize energy use and enhance community safety. However, technological solutions alone cannot eliminate risk, underscoring the importance of behavioral change, cultural evolution, and collective responsibility in shaping sustainable futures. Renewable energy transitions gather momentum as nations recognize that reducing greenhouse emissions remains one of the most effective long-term strategies for stabilizing global temperature trends. Solar farms expand across deserts and rooftops alike, capturing abundant sunlight while transforming landscapes into symbols of adaptation and innovation in the face of warming climates. Wind energy projects also gain traction, though planners must consider how shifting weather patterns may influence generation reliability and infrastructure resilience over time. Scientists explore carbon capture technologies capable of removing emissions from the atmosphere, offering potential pathways to reverse some impacts of industrialization. Yet, scaling such solutions requires unprecedented global cooperation, financial commitment, and regulatory frameworks that balance urgency with environmental ethics. Communities experimenting with regenerative agriculture demonstrate promising outcomes, restoring soil health and improving water retention while increasing resilience against temperature extremes. Urban gardening initiatives flourish, reconnecting residents with food production and fostering awareness about sustainable consumption habits shaped by climate realities. Architectural innovation embraces passive cooling techniques inspired by ancient designs, proving that historical wisdom can complement modern engineering in addressing contemporary environmental challenges. Governments introduce incentives encouraging energy-efficient construction, recognizing that buildings represent long-term investments influencing emission trajectories for decades. Climate-resilient transportation planning emphasizes electrification, improved public transit networks, and pedestrian-friendly infrastructure capable of reducing heat exposure and pollution simultaneously. Aviation researchers investigate sustainable fuels and aerodynamic improvements designed to maintain performance under increasingly variable atmospheric conditions.